David Shield is a non-profit organization training over 10,000 civilians every year in protection, mindset, and skill set.
Hey everyone, this is Lenny from David Shield.
And this is Nathan from David Shield.
And today we're going to be talking and sharing with you some ideas on incident preparedness. And what do we mean by this? It means that we need to be in a state of mind and a state of awareness and preparedness in the event of something happening, whatever that may be, whether it's at home, whether it's once again at our place of worship, at an institution, our place of work, it doesn't really matter. But we need to have a level of preparedness in order to react in the correct way and the appropriate manner when something happens or if something happens. And it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a medical emergency, whether it's a physical attack, it doesn't really matter what it is. But if we don't have and we haven't played the if-then scenario game in our minds, in other words, if this happens, I'm going to do this, or if that happens, I'm going to do whatever it might be, when we're presented with that scenario, if we haven't gone through the steps in our minds of how we're going to deal with it, 9 times out of 10, we're just going to panic. And in order to not panic, and in order to be level-headed, and to act appropriately to ensure the safety and security of our family, those that we love, of our community, of our fellow colleagues at work, it doesn't really matter where it is, we need to be able to act appropriately and effectively in order to ensure the safety and security, and that comes in terms of being incident prepared. So a couple of things that came to mind or comes to mind for me. The first thing that we need to know, and in the United States it's relatively easy, but we need to know emergency contact numbers. Now in the States that's easy, 911, everyone knows that. We call 911 and we'll get patched through to the relevant security, but again, you need to know that number. But if you have a private security service, for example, a private ambulance service, you might also want to have those numbers easily accessible on your phone, because sometimes the 911 response may be too slow. And you want to get a quicker response to the incident that's taking place, whether it's a medical emergency or a security emergency, whatever it may be. So it's not just about having 911, it's about having other appropriate contact details of the relevant emergency service provider over and above 911. I believe personally that everyone should be trained in basic CPR. I personally am a paramedic, and I believe that everyone has a duty to know basic CPR, which is cardiopulmonary resuscitation. And the reason I say that is that because in the event that you are in a position and witness a collapse, the survivability, if we know CPR, is dramatically increased if we start doing basic CPR straight away before we call emergency services. It is proven fact. And that's why I believe everyone should have that. Even children from the age of 8, maybe even a little bit younger, should know basic CPR. Moving on to that, which is slightly more training required, is to have some first aid knowledge, how to deal with bleeding, wounds, etc., etc. There, more detailed course needs to be done, but I do think some knowledge of that is also important. You should have a first aid kit on hand in your motor vehicle or vehicles. You should certainly have a first aid kit at home. Your place of worship should definitely have a first aid kit if it doesn't have one, and your place of work probably has that anyway.
All right, thanks Lenny. This is Nathan over here. The next point is to know your closest ER emergency room to your home, your school, place of worship, and your work. It's very, very important. People think that something goes down, 911, and or whatever the emergency number is, and they'll send an ambulance. It is a known fact that in mass casualties, bomb attacks, in 911, people had to put people in the back of their own cars, in the back of trucks. There was a shooting at the music event in America just a few years ago, and they couldn't wait for the emergency vehicles to arrive. So you literally, with absolutely no training in CPR or basic first aid, can be the driver to take people to your closest emergency room. So know where the closest emergency room is. I know that when in David Shield, when we do any training, it is an absolute must that we have a map and we know exactly where the closest emergency room is as well. So to add in there, where is the closest emergency room to your gym, where you're working out? It's unfortunately a likely place for someone to have a collapse, break something, or God forbid anything worse. The last is situational security awareness training. Now, I cannot tell you everything on this little voiceover here about your situational security awareness training. This is one of the top priorities of David Shield, to train over 10,000 people a year in understanding how to be aware of potential dangers. Is that man, is that woman a potential danger? Well, probably not, unless you can work out what is standing out. Is that car a potential danger? Yes, it is. Everything is a potential danger, but everything is also not a potential danger. You need to have your own situational security awareness to be able to pick up on what is potential danger and what is not potential danger. That is for your church, for your synagogue, your mosque, your children's school, and your own home as well. So I think that does it for the top 6 incident preparedness. The main point that we want to get across to you is that without that preparedness in your mind, when the you know what hits the fan, most people will panic or freeze and not know what to do. But if you play the what if game with yourself, with your spouse, with your children, with your classroom, then you'll be far more prepared to act accordingly when the dangers actually arise. For more information on our education and training, please visit www.davidshieldfoundation.org.